Hello and welcome to the URSA webinar, a guide to health club staff training during COVID-19. Before we begin, I'd like to read a real quick word from our sponsor, Club Automation. Club Automation is the club performance engine driven by clubs. They go beyond club software to provide best-in-breed solutions for health, fitness, and wellness clubs. As clubs nationwide begin to reopen, they are committed to providing our community with the guidance and resources necessary to navigate the new normal. Together with their parent company, Daxco, they recently brought together the top leaders and operators from across the health, wellness, and fitness industry to discuss best practices for reopening. They captured these best practices to build a step-by-step guide with standard operating procedures designed specifically for health, wellness, and fitness organizations, the Reopening Playbook. You can download a free copy of this playbook at clubautomation.com/COVID-19. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Marissa Hoff. Named one of URSA's Women Who Inspire in 2019, Marissa Hoff is the Director of Operations at Stevenson Consulting, a full-service consulting firm based in Westlake Village, California. Marissa's current focus is working with fitness professionals and their businesses to achieve growth and continued success. For nearly 10 years, Marissa was the general manager at Stevenson Fitness, a full-service 7,500-square-foot boutique health club in Southern California. Marissa oversaw all club operations and worked to build a membership of over 2,000 members with a net promoter score consistently in the 90s, retention rates over 70%, high active user rates, and a booming group exercise program. Both the personal and small group training departments thrived under her leadership. Marissa holds a master's degree in education and is an international presenter at fitness conferences, including URSA, the Retention Convention Beijing, Club Industry, and IDEA. And without further ado, I'd like to throw the floor to Marissa to begin today's presentation.
Thanks so much, Billy, and thanks everyone for joining us. I really appreciate that. Wanted to start with a quick little story about the importance of training. For those of you who are parents, you know that one of the most important things that we train on is potty training. And several years ago when I was potty training my son Cole, it became very clear to me how important clarity in communication was. We were down at the beach. Everything with potty training was going fantastic. He got the hang of it. We were rolling through it. We were at the beach, and he said, "Mommy, I need to go potty." And, of course, I didn't want to run back up to the restrooms at the parking lot, so I said, "Oh, honey, you can just go in the ocean." And sure enough, he pulled down his pants and went right there. And in my mind, I had envisioned him going into the water and being very discreet about it. But of course, because of my lack of clarity and communication, something totally different happened. And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the importance of clarity in communication when you're training. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, but I think Billy did such an amazing job that we're not going to do too much on that. We're going to review some of the timelines for reopening when you're training your staff. We're going to talk about some methods and review topics to cover, especially in light of the pandemic. And then one of the things that I'd really like to do is have you form some sort of action plan at the end of today. Now, one of the things that I know is you've probably done a gazillion webinars, and some of you may be in clubs now that are working. Some of you may be getting ready to reopen. So what I'd like you to do is set aside a Post-it, a piece of paper, some notes on your phone where you think about 2 or 3 things that you take away from today that you can implement right away. Sometimes it's overwhelming, the amount of information that we're getting, and if you're getting close to reopening, you're probably super overwhelmed right now. But I'd really love for you to take away some super tangible things to do. So before we start, I want to get a sense of who is here. If you could tell me with the poll whether your club is open yet or not, that'll give me a sense of where to focus a little more. So, wow. All right. So it looks like this is going to be just a few, I guess the people that are open, are probably working in the club right now. And so most of you now are still getting ready to reopen, so this is perfect. As Billy mentioned, started at UCLA. I was a Group X instructor, general manager. Now I work with fitness businesses as a consultant. And I'm so grateful and appreciative to Ursa and Billy, who are giving us the opportunity to learn from each other. This has been an unprecedented time. I'm sure you haven't heard that at all. And being able to share with one another best practices has been really powerful. And I'm so thrilled to be a part of this industry because it's been amazing what we've been able to do together. So let's talk a little bit about the value of employee training. Henry Ford says the only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. And this is especially true now as you get ready to open your club and start to get people in the doors post-COVID. So obviously, if you do good jobs in training, you're going to improve employee performance, you're going to increase their engagement, their satisfaction. The more you train, the more people stay. It enhances your member experience. And one of the things that we're going to address a little bit today is it's really going to limit your liability and your risk. So Ursa had an amazing webinar on May 21st with Adam Sloster. He's an attorney, so all the legal stuff is stuff that we saw in that webinar, and I highly recommend if you haven't listened to it that you do. I'm not an attorney, but there were a couple points that he brought up that really sank in for me, and one of them was document everything, especially in regard to training. So I'm going to give you some solid examples as we go through, but it's going to be really important post-COVID. So some statistics that are going to tell you a little bit about employee training. And of course, Benjamin Franklin always has great quotes, and this one says, an investment in knowledge always pays best interest. So 94% of employees would stay with a company longer if there was more training. We know that 68% of employees say training and development is the company's most important policy. And companies who invest in training have higher profit margins by 24%. And finally, this is the statistic that blew me away. On average, companies that have fewer than 100 employees give only 12 minutes of manager training every 6 months. So in a year, you're spending about 25 minutes with your employees. And then if you have more than 100 employees, you're giving them about 6 minutes every 6 months. And this is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor. To me, that's just mind-boggling. Definitely shows that we need to spend a lot more time in training. Even if you doubled that, an hour in a year is not that much. So since most of you are not open, I'm going to talk a little bit about what this timeline looks like. What I would do is once you are starting to get a sense of when you're going to open is, and I'm sure most of you are already there where you're working on all your procedures and setting up new cleaning protocols and doing all of that right now. You're preparing, right? Hopefully you're documenting everything and making some sort of document that shows all the guidelines and procedures that you're going to have. Once you get a sense of when you're opening, a week out is I would send out all these new guidelines and protocols via email to all your employees. And about a week out, once they've received the email and replied, yes, I received it, yes, I've read it. So this is part of that documentation. You're going to have a mandatory Zoom meeting for all employees. And your goal in this meeting is to give kind of an overview of where you are. Hopefully, you've been constantly communicating with them, letting them know what's going on, telling them stuff. It may be that a majority of your employees are on furlough, but you're still communicating with them. At this point, once you start bringing them in formally, you will have to take them off furlough and start paying them for their time. But in this Zoom meeting, it's your job to set just the overall goals. We're going to open. It's going to be amazing. We're going to get people on board. This is where we are, and just general stuff. And then it's really important that in this meeting you set expectations, specifically in regard to cleaning and social distancing. And this is something that I've heard from other owners that has been really challenging for staff, especially the physical/social distancing. So you are going to run into friends that you haven't seen in 3 months, and the first thing you're going to want to do is hug them or high five them, and that just can't happen. And we'll talk about the reasons why in just a minute. Once you've set that expectation, you're going to bring all your staff back to the club, and you're going to have an all-staff meeting. In this meeting, the very first thing you're going to do as a leader is model the behavior that you're expecting for them when they come back. That means in these pictures, that's not what you're going to do because they don't have COVID staff meeting pictures on Big Stock. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your employees 6 feet apart. You're going to ask them to wear masks. I know that this is something that is challenging for some people. Some people may even have different perceptions about whether they want to wear masks or not. And of course, county and state and even country regulations are different. Here's what I've heard from owners that have opened. Even if masks are not mandatory, the perception is masks are better. So I would highly encourage, regardless of what the policy or the law is, that you have at least initially everyone wearing masks and wearing them properly over the nose and the mouth. And you're modeling that behavior when people are walking in. You're greeting them from far away. Maybe you even have like a special handshake that you do in the air or some sort of special signal that's going to be special to your club, but you're modeling from the get-go. And in this meeting, you're going to do a big overview of everything. But the key thing here is to get your employees fired up and motivated and pumped to come back to work. So this is where you sit down with them and say, guys, I am so excited to come back. You don't understand how much I've missed you. You guys are so important. Your role here is to get these members back on track in their health and maybe even to start helping people who really need our help. We all know and we all are believers that exercise is medicine. And the more we can get people moving, the more we can help combat this pandemic before this whole vaccine thing comes out. So you're pumping them up, you're getting them fired up, you're telling them how important their role is, and you're going to review all the general guidelines and procedures that you've been working so hard on. And it may be that your club stations or different layouts, you're going to be walking around with all the different employees and showing them what is new. And you'll have the opportunity to do a little role play, and we'll be specific about that later. And then finally, on the day before you open, you're going to bring them in via department. So if you have a huge club, it could be that your departments are kids club and you've got your welcome desk people in a different meeting and your trainers in a different one. If you're a small club, maybe it's all together, it's up to you. But in this one, you're meeting by department. Let's pretend you're a bigger club. And you're going to review specifics to what it looks like for that department. So if you're a personal trainer department, you're going to talk about what training looks like. In California, where we are, it is very clear in the mandates that trainers need to be 6 feet apart and they need to wear masks. So what does that look like when you're training? How to be creative when you can't spot. You're probably not going to have people lifting as heavily or doing stuff where you would typically be doing more of a hands-on kind of thing. So what does that look like? For Kids Club, what does that look like? Welcome desk, how are you checking people in? Some of us are doing thermometer checks. So practice, practice, practice. Everyone's going to walk through the member journey. You're going to talk about what it looks like for them. You're going to have all the employees go through that, and you're going to get the feedback. They might notice something that you didn't know, like, what about when someone doesn't bring a towel? What do we do? So you're going to go through all that, and most importantly, at the end of that, you're going to assess that all your team members know what they're doing, are comfortable with what they're doing, and then this is where they sign off, that they participated in the training, that you acknowledge that they did that. And this is, again, part of that legal stuff that Adam mentioned, but it's documenting that you've done everything you could to make sure that you were right where you needed to be, and that's really important. So let's talk about the steps for effective training. First, you're obviously going to teach, and then you need to reinforce, and finally, you need to appreciate. So let's talk about teaching the skill. And again, here's my favorite, Ben Franklin again. We're on a first name basis now, not Benjamin anymore. And he says, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. So this is going to be super important, especially with things that are critical post-COVID. So you're going to tell them what you're going to teach. So it may be that you're going to tell them how to wash your hands. It seems silly, but that's important. Or you may talk to them about how to take masks off and put them on. That's the skill. And you're going to tell them, this is what I'm going to teach you about. And you're going to tell them why it's important. So for instance, with the mask, I've heard from a lot of club owners that their staff doesn't have the same fear or concern about interacting with people, and that this 6-foot thing is really challenging. And they don't believe in masks, or they don't like to wear them. But the thing is, you need to tell them why it's important that they wear a mask. Not only is it important for all the reasons that the CDC are telling you, that it's about being able to prevent the spread of the disease and keeping our members safe and healthy. We certainly wouldn't want to have a member come in and get something and then give it to their grandmother, all of that stuff. But the other reason why it's important is perception. So we have a friend with a club where the Group X instructor pulled down her mask to say something in the middle of class. Someone took a picture and it went on social media, and they got blasted for not being safe. It could be that my trainer and I are comfortable with one another. We're not wearing masks, but a third party is watching and sees that we're not wearing our mask the way we should be, and that person could put it on social media or tell all their friends that they don't feel safe. So you need to give them the scenarios about why this is so important for the success of your business. It's health and safety, yes, but it's also perception. Then you're going to teach them, and if it's something really important like a new cleaning protocol or taking people's temperatures or whatever it is, you need to make sure that you vary the way you are teaching it. So not only are you documenting it with some sort of handout, so here's the picture of how you wash your hands or how you put on a mask and wear it, but you're also going to demonstrate it for them. Maybe you show them a video. So you're going to give them different modalities so that they really get the hang of what you're trying to teach them. And then you're going to show them. You're going to demonstrate it for them, and you're going to have them do it for you. They're going to be partnered up. It might be that it's a role play on how to tell a member to clean up after themselves, but all of these things need to be done by you, by them, and in multiple ways. And finally, you have to coach them. So you're watching, and you're saying, yeah, I really like the way you washed your hands there, but you didn't get your thumb, or it was too short, whatever it is. It's a silly example, but you definitely want to watch them do it and coach them on that. So one of our favorite people in the fitness industry, I'm sure many of you know Brent, said something that to this day, and this was years ago that I heard him say, you get what you demand and encourage what you tolerate. And this, as a general manager, was so impactful to me, because it really was, when you let things slide, you're encouraging that to happen. And that's something that cannot happen right now as you get ready to open your club. You have to go in there and you have to hit it out of the park. I mean, you have to do a phenomenal job. The people that are coming in initially to your club, they don't care. They're so excited. They want to work out. They probably don't care that you're cleaning more or bought the UV light thing, whatever. They just want to work out. But the problem is the people that are still hesitant are friends with these first members, and they're going to get their impression based on what those people tell them, what other people hear. So it's important for many reasons that you be really consistent from the get-go. Clarity, as we talked about with potty training, it improves connection and engagement, trust and transparency. It definitely makes it very clear what you expect. And when you test your message, like, okay, tell me what I just told you, or have people repeat it to you, it definitely reduces misinterpretation and failures in communication. So I wanted to share something really quickly that was awesome, that was done by Kate Golden at the NAC. And I saw, Amanda, you're on the call, so you've probably already seen this, but to me, this was so clear as to what behavior was expected and not expected. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it, but I just wanted to share that Kate did such an amazing job. When they trained their staff to come back, they talked about best work environments. What green behaviors were, those were good. What yellow behaviors were, not so good. And then the red behavior, definitely not good. And rather than say, generally what that looks like, they were very specific. Green behaviors are wearing your masks, sharing our social posts, picking up without being asked, being a team member. These were all listed as things that were expected, very clear. And then the not so great behaviors were the yellow behaviors. And again, these were very clear, like you're not sharing our posts, you're stepping over trash on the floor or towels, you're being grumpy or stressed out, not respecting that. That's all very clear in their training, and that's what I want to see when you're training your staff, clarity and communication. And finally, they were, again, very clear of stuff that would zero tolerance, whether it's not wearing your uniform or a mask or not taking responsibility, any of those things, those were definitely a zero tolerance policy. But I want to thank the NAC and GATE for sharing those with us because I thought they were amazing. So here are some things that you need to cover as you get ready to come back and open your club. The very first thing, and again, this is something that Kate shared with us, is talking to your staff about facts on COVID-19. There are people on your staff that are getting their COVID-19 information from TikTok. Nothing against TikTok. It's very entertaining, but not a great source of information. So you're going to use the CDC and the World Health Organization to explain to your staff exactly what COVID-19 is, what the symptoms are, what the spread is. Again, this is a very fluid situation. I understand from one day to another we're getting different messages. So that's one of the things you want to stay current on what the CDC and the World Health Organization are saying, and you're sharing that with your staff. They need to understand because there are still misconceptions, and those need to be addressed. And you're telling them, I've been spending the last 3 months reading up, going to webinars, talking to people around the globe. This is the reason why we're doing this. They need to understand that. Secondly, you definitely want to talk about your new cleaning products. So I know most health clubs have changed what they're doing. We've talked about the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, and you have new products that you're using. You want to educate your staff on that. I know that I've had clubs share with me that prospects are calling the clubs and asking, what products are you using? What is your cleaning protocol? Everyone on staff needs to know it. Obviously, people who are in housekeeping are going to know it at a different level than your Group X instructors, but it's something that needs to be known. It may even be that you make little cards that tell exactly what the cleaning products are because some people are going to want to know. They're going to want to know if they're safe for the environment. I know, for instance, Amanda, at the NAC, you guys have different stuff for Kids Club, right, than what you're doing for your cardio equipment. So that's all stuff that needs to be known. And you have to find a way to make sure that, especially in Kids Club or in member services, which is what we call our sales department, can answer those questions without any pause or hesitation. So whatever you can do to make sure they have that. Obviously, you're going to have new cleaning and sanitation protocols. Everyone needs to understand that. We all know that our jobs are going to look very different now than they did before. We're all on the clean team, whether I'm a general manager, a Group X instructor, a smoothie bar person. I don't know. We didn't have a cafe, so I don't know what those people are called. But we're all on the clean team, and so we need to be familiar with what that looks like. Obviously, as I mentioned before in the example, everyone on staff needs to know how to wash their hands and the proper use of masks, gloves, et cetera, if you're using them. And then social or physical distancing is something that you have to teach. And again, you're going to tell them the whys of why this is so important. You're going to explain to them why, as a business, it may be that you really need to come back strong. Let's say it would be an ideal scenario if 80% of your members came back. We know that some people are not going to be able to come back, but 80% would be great, but you still need to get some new members, and the only way this is going to happen is if we do everything by the book from the beginning. The other thing is you're going to get so many questions about billing. And that definitely needs to be worked out before you open. So are you going to unfreeze people so that they can start making reservations? If they had frozen 2 weeks into their billing cycle, what are you going to do with the last 2 weeks? What if I still want to freeze? What's going to happen if all these different scenarios? And obviously, not everyone needs to know the minutia of the details of billing, but they need to be answering confidently like, oh, our member services department will take care of you. I know that if you're not comfortable coming back yet, that they're going to work with you to freeze for another couple months. Just basic stuff that everyone on your team needs to know. No one wants to have what we would call the runaround. So if I'm asking someone, and it could be that it's a member that runs into one of your personal trainers at the supermarket, hasn't come back yet and asking questions, and you definitely want your personal trainer to be answering confidently. It helps them feel good about what they do, but it also limits the amount of quote-unquote runaround that your members are getting. And then really important, the last two, and this is where you're going to spend a lot of time role-playing and talking this through and practicing, it's any sort of conflict resolution or member policing. So what we want to avoid is having, let's say, Danielle being in the club and she sees that Christine is not doing what she needs to be with cleaning equipment and going over to her and saying something negative that possibly escalates. So we definitely want to let members know from the beginning that any issues, concerns get addressed through staff and we'll deal with them directly. So if Charlene notices something, she's going to come to someone on staff, and then me as a staff member will deal with the situation. We definitely want to get past that member policing thing, which happened before, but even more so now. So we want to work on that and really train our staff on that. And finally, policy enforcement. So this is going to be, we just heard yesterday from LA County, will be opening as early as Friday. And one of the things that they are requiring is that our gym members wear masks both entering and exiting the club, which was something that we had not expected. Masks are encouraged inside the club, but not mandatory. So as a staff, I have to train people on how to enforce this with members coming in that are not wearing masks. So a very simple step-by-step procedure is something that you're going to do regardless of the policy. And by the way, everybody hates the word policy. So anytime you're addressing a situation, saying the word like, this is the policy, policy this, policy that, just annoys people in general. So you want to just talk about it in a different light. So I'm going to give you the step-by-step. First is you're going to introduce yourself if you don't know the members. Some of you have ginormous clubs and you don't know all the members. So it may be that, Asia, you're walking in as a member and I come up to you and I say, hi, my name is Marissa. I'm the general manager here. What's your name? My tendency had been when I ran the club to kind of get, I'm kind of a direct person, and you need to not just go, hey, you need to be wearing your mask, because it's off-putting. So it needs to be a softer approach, and it always starts with introducing yourself and building a relationship and having a smile on your face and saying hello. And then you're going to say, I'm not sure you're aware, but we are requiring masks to be worn when we come in or out of the club. And more than likely, they are aware and they just don't care. But you're always going to give them that out. Like, I'm not sure you're aware, but we're actually having everyone disinfect their station after they leave. And again, it's not telling them, hey, you didn't do this, just saying, oh, just so you know. And again, very polite. And then you're going to tell them the why. This is really important. So with, hey, the state of California is asking that we have all our gym members wear masks in and out of the building so that it helps keep all the other people in this plaza safe. You're going to say, hey, and you're not going to tell them it's, this is the law. You're going to tell them the reason behind it. So if, hey, we're going to ask you to clean up after yourself. And it could be, by the way, when you're seeing someone that hasn't cleaned the equipment, you're going to go, as a staff, you're going to go clean it for them. And then you'll approach them and say, hey, my name is Marissa. I'm the general manager. We're actually having all members disinfect after they go. you probably weren't aware, but part of that is so that everyone feels comfortable coming to the club and using the equipment. And then you're going to say what you can do is sometimes you can have an alternative. Sometimes there is no alternative. So for instance, with the mask, like what I can do is I can give you a mask to come in and out. You might want to have some extra ones on hand. Or if it's, what I can do is, I can make sure that we have more wipes near these equipment pieces if you feel like, but you're going to have to find a way to do that. We would always coach this when it came to the cell phone policy, right? If you're not allowed to be talking on the floor, what you would say is what you can do is go out to the lobby or text or whatever. So sometimes there is no alternative, and that's what it is. But if there is one, give them that option. And finally, you want to thank them for being understanding and cooperating, especially in this instance. This is going to be a thing where everyone who comes in at the beginning, they're the gung-ho people, and you're going to say, oh, my gosh, Emily, thank you so much for helping with this. We're just so excited to see you, and we really appreciate your cooperation. What I have heard from almost all the club members is that the people who are coming in initially are super nice, super excited to be back. I know that I've heard from so many of you that this is an incredibly stressful time, that getting ready to open is even more stressful. You've probably worked harder than you ever have in your career, but once you open, it's so much better than you expect. So that's what I've heard from lots and lots of people. So take a deep breath. It's all going to be okay, and just make sure you have your ducks in a row and it'll work out. So we talked about teaching, and then the next part is the reinforcing of the skill. And here, in this instance, there are 3 reasons why employees aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. One is they don't know, and that's on you because you didn't teach them well enough, you didn't reinforce the skill, and that's what we're going to talk about. The other 2 is they don't care, which is a problem, and that's something that needs to be addressed immediately, or they don't agree. So it could be that they don't agree that we need to take people's temperatures. You're going to hear that out, and then you're going to say, I understand why you're coming from this angle, but here are the reasons why. Every decision that you've made, I'm sure you've thought about a lot. You've talked to other people. You've networked. You've done a gazillion webinars, and you just have to be very clear. Another thing, just as a side note, from members or club owners that I have talked to, stick to your procedures, your policies, your prices, all of those things, stick to them. And that's one piece of advice that I've heard from tons and tons of club owners. Just you've made this decision, stick with it. So the first thing is the HR component. As I mentioned earlier, everyone's job looks very different right now. So this is the time for you to redo everybody's job descriptions, because it's going to include cleaning, it's going to include possibly taking people's temperatures, it's going to include stuff that we didn't do before. Legally, that needs to be in the job description, and this is where that Adam webinar on the 21st was important. You're also going to be redoing your employee handbooks. Those are things that they're going to sign off on, and that's more of a legal HR thing, but don't forget that because that's important. Then we talked a little bit about perception. And this is when you talk to your staff members about the importance of what they're doing. It may be that there's a group of people when they come in, as I mentioned before, they're super comfortable, they're not worried about COVID, they're not anxious about it, but there are people watching. They are going to be telling stories to people. How was it at the club? How did it go? Were they wearing masks? The perception part is going to be a really key PR piece for you, not only in having hesitant members return, but in prospects. Unfortunately, we're going to see clubs that are closing. We're going to see clubs that aren't going to be able to make it, and you're going to have a pool of people that are looking for a new home. And you really need to have all your policies and procedures done well so that these people know that your club is going to be their new home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about coaching. So you've done all the teaching and the training, the 1 week out, the 3 days out, all that stuff. The key thing is this is something that continues way past, opening your doors on the first day. This is something that continues nonstop. When you first open, you're going to be spending a majority of your time on the floor. You're going to be out there wearing your mask. You're going to be modeling behavior. You're going to be reinforcing all the things that are going well, and you're going to be interacting with members. So you may have a ton of stuff to do, like redoing your employee handbook or doing your job descriptions, all that stuff. But your most important thing in the beginning is to be on the floor. And then ultimately, let's say 6 months down the road and you're back to, whatever normal is going to look like, you're still going to set aside time to walk the floor every day, multiple times a day. So you really should have dedicated time, probably in peak times, where you're going out there, interacting, reinforcing, modeling. And then the other thing you want to do is anytime you have a new shift coming on, it's like the restaurant business. You gather everyone together, you talk about what's going on that day, you're going to get them pumped up to deliver whatever it is, whether it's your sales team. Okay, guys, we have 20 prospects that have been in the pipeline. You guys are going to make those calls, say hello to all our new members, you're going to get those appointments, and you're going to hit it out of the park. So you're going to motivate them, you're going to remind them about stuff. It may be that guidelines change. As we know, the situation is very fluid. So, hey, now you guys, we don't need to do X, Y, or Z. Or, unfortunately now we have to do A, B, and C. So this is where you're doing what you need to do. And then as you're walking the floor, one of the things you need to be doing is instantaneous coaching. So you're observing what your employees are doing, what your team members are doing, and then if there's something that isn't quite right, you're going to hit it right then and there. So our tendency is to not want to address that right then and there. And then maybe a week goes down and, oh, hey, Janelle, I noticed that when you were teaching that class, you took your mask down and we can't have that. But that's a week later. So you want to try to do it right on the spot. Of course, you're not going to march in the middle of class. You don't want to embarrass the employee and do it in front of other members or other employees. But it might be after class, you pull Janelle aside and you say, hey, Janelle, I love the class. What great energy. And I know that wearing the mask was really hard when you were trying to demonstrate burpees and talk. But I really need you to be doing that because members are watching you, and it's really important that you always have your mask on at all times. So you're hitting it instantly. You also want to make sure that you're using any survey capabilities to reinforce a skill. I know a lot of you have done the shutdown survey through Medallia. If you haven't, it's such a great piece of information. It's going to be telling you what people are thinking as they get ready to come back to the club. And you're using that kind of mentality when you reopen your club. You're going to hear what your members are saying about what it's like reopening. It's kind of like getting testimonials for the people who aren't even there yet. And you're also going to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. So it could be that you're standing outside as members are leaving, like, how was your workout today? Great. Did you have easy access to all the sanitation equipment you needed? Great. You're asking how it's going. And then, oh, you noticed that I'm looking at the names in the chat window. That's why I'm using your names from time to time. Oh, I noticed that Lorinda was really working hard. This is what the member tells you. So then you're going to go to Lorinda and say, hey, kudos to you. Manuel said that you did a really good job cleaning up after the class or whatever it is. And you're going to be really specific with the good and the bad. But surveys are a great way to get information. And then protect the house is something that we talked about a lot when we ran our club. And this is the us versus them mentality. So many of you have staff members that have become really close with the members. And our tendency as humans is to agree and to sympathize. So if someone says, oh my gosh, a member, I can't believe, we have to wear masks when we enter and exit the building. As your friend, your staff member might want to say, oh, I know, right? They are making us do that. What we want to shift is the they to we. So in that same situation, the staff member would say, we just know it's so important to keep all the other members of the plaza safe. Or we know, if you want to be, set someone up as a bad guy. We know that the state of California is watching, and we would certainly hate to get shut down over something minor like that. So you really have to teach your employees about when something comes up, if it's a side, like a suggestion or a remark that gets made just in passing, it's always the we as the house and not the they versus them. Hope that makes sense, because that's super important. And then finally, you are probably going to have, this comes back to the HR thing a little bit, but you may need to redo your evaluations, your formal ones, right? The ones where you now may have to put things like, you know, is a great member of the clean team, things that are going to help assess the things that are important, and that's something that you'll have to look at. And finally, as I said, once you train a skill, it's not like your job is done. You're continually throughout the year training and retraining and reinforcing, so that's super important. And one of the things that we did that I think worked really well for us at Stevenson Fitness when we had the club was we set aside by department skills that would be reinforced every week, things that were important. So we put together an Excel spreadsheet, and we would say, like, in the month of, let's say, this was for the welcome desk, in the month of May, we were really going to talk about the importance of taking suggestions, listening to complaints. This is specific to us, about playmaking. And every week, the manager for that department would email the staff, this week we're really going to focus on suggestions. And then when they came into the club, they would role play suggestions. They would practice with each other so that those skills don't get lost. And sometimes it could be that these skills are reinforced multiple times a year. You know, we had a month that was safety month, and the whole club, like 1 week would be all about fire and fire extinguishers and procedures. 1 week would be all about CPR. So you'd walk around and you'd say, okay, Molly, what happens if a member drops right there in front of you? What are you going to do? You're reinforcing that skill. Sadly, we had to have an active shooter week. And then member incidents. That's where you practice all your conflict resolution stuff, all that kind of thing. So that's reinforcing the skill. So in your action plan, if you have that little piece of paper or that note on your phone, what's one thing that you could do differently or that you're going to start to implement to help in reinforcing skills? Take a minute to think about that. Is there something that you heard that you're like, you know what, we could definitely do this? All right, and the last step after teaching and reinforcing is appreciating. And this is a quote by Richard Branson. I have always believed that the way you treat your employees is the way they will treat your customers, and that people flourish when they are praised. And that's so important. All of you have different team members that need different motivation. And it may be that you are the type of leader that doesn't need a pat on the back. It may be that you thrive because you love to accomplish things and you love just the sense of accomplishment. But most people need constant appreciation. As a matter of fact, many of you are familiar with the Gallup 12. That is a little quiz in which measures employee engagement. And there's 12 questions. That's why it's called Gallup 12. And one of the questions is, in the last 7 days, have you received recognition or praise for doing good work? So what that means is to get employee engagement, you should be appreciating people at least every week, if not more than that. And so although this may not come naturally for everyone, this is a super important piece, and especially now. There are members that have been, team members that have been furloughed, team members that may have relatives that suffered from COVID. Of course, there's all the other stuff going on in the country with civil unrest. So it's really important that you are empathetic with your employees coming back. There may be some that are not even comfortable coming back, and that's something that we're going to have to think about and address as well. It could be someone that has someone elderly at home or someone that is elderly, and you're really going to have to be empathetic to the situation, and you're going to have to be understanding as well. So that involves a lot of listening. hopefully most of you have had the opportunity to be in constant communication with your staff. That might be just checking in, a phone call, an email. Sadly, I have a friend who's a Group X instructor for a big corporate facility, and once the shutdown happened, she received maybe like 3 or 4 emails from different people in the company that she didn't even know, and then nothing. Literally in the last 3 months, she has not heard anything from the company. And this is a big, well-known corporation. I'm hoping that you had the opportunity to be dialoguing with your employees, even if they were on furlough. How are you doing? What's going on? Are you excited about coming back? That's really tough. And I know that we don't have the ability always or the time to do all of this as managers, as owners, but you really need to make the effort to do that. And then I know you guys are super busy. I know you have a lot going on, especially if you're getting close to reopening. You're probably panicked. I appreciate that you're here listening to this, but you do have to respond quickly to whether it's a text or an email or a phone call from your employee regarding anything. Even if they're asking you, when are we going to open? When do I have to come back? And you have no idea. You're still going to say, you know what? We're waiting on the county. We don't know, but I'm doing everything I can, and I will stay connected, and I will let you know. Sometimes that answer is going to be, I don't know. And by the way, side note, which just kind of came to me, that's one topic that you do need to train your staff on. So if someone approaches them, and this goes back to the teaching, I know I'm going backwards a little bit, and they don't know the answer, you need to train them on how to answer when they don't know the answer. So you don't want your employees going, oh, I don't know. I guess you should go ask at the front desk. Members don't want to experience that. So it could be something as simple as like, that is a great question. And you know what? I don't know the answer. Let me find out for you. So teaching your employees that even if they don't know the answer, there are ways to answer and ways not to answer. So that's something that you role play and practice with them. And again, gratitude, this is something that you're going to have to be doing a lot. Remember I talked about in that initial Zoom meeting and then the all-staff meeting, a lot of what your role is as a leader, as a motivator, as an inspirer is, you guys, I'm so grateful to you for coming in today. You guys are going to be so amazing. And if you see something specific, you're going to say, right, whether it's a survey response where, let's say, Rebecca, someone said, Rebecca taught the most amazing small group training. I feel so comfortable. I feel so safe. You're going to make sure that Rebecca knows that right away, that you go and tell her. Sometimes we see all kinds of great feedback on these surveys and we forget to share them with our staff. It's important that they get that feedback. But you're walking the floor, you're walking around, and you notice that Patty did an amazing job with her personal training client. And you're going to say, Patty, I love the way you were interacting with Sal. You were showing him how to do this. You kept your physical distance, but you were still super motivating. And you're making sure that you're frequently thanking your employees, telling them what they're doing well. I used to teach first grade, and this was super important. If I saw that there were kids that were kind of goofing off and not sitting well, you praise all the people around them, like, oh my gosh, Paula is doing such a nice job of sitting crisscross applesauce. And then that would make everybody else like, oh, I want to be like that. So that's also part of your gratitude, is to reinforce good behaviors for other people as well. And one of the things that you're going to have to look into is providing some sort of mental health resources for your team. So if they're feeling anxious, where can they go? It might be something that you don't have the resources for, but if you just Google for your county, there are people that can be called. There are all kinds of different solutions. You need to make them available, as well as, you know, it could be that on the posters that you have in your office, you know, the labor posters, you also have places where they can call, places where they can check for the latest CDC information. All that stuff needs to be provided for them so that you know that you're looking out for them, helping them, and they're going to be there for them. But most importantly, you're just appreciating them. So thinking back to our action plan, is there anything that you could be doing as you get ready to reopen to really work on appreciating the skill? So take a minute to think about that. Are you going to look for mental health resources? I mean, one of the things that I had, because this didn't come naturally to me as a general manager, is I would have a checklist of all the employees, and from time to time I would just go through the list and send someone a quick email like, hey, Matthew, I really appreciate all the work that you're doing here at the club. I love how engaging you are with your clients, and I just wanted to let you know that I thank you. And then I'd go to the next one. So after Matthew is Molly. Hey, Molly, thanks so much for coming in early to help with cleaning. Your dedication and engagement are so very much appreciated. And you go down the line, and it seems forced, but it's not. It's just getting, and whether it's a handwritten note, if you can take the time to do that, that's amazing as well. So anything you can do to really reinforce. This is going to be a tough time for everyone. I know for you guys as well, but that appreciation is going to go a long way. So those were the basic 3 steps. You're teaching all those different skills that we talked about. You're reinforcing them through role play, through all kinds of hands-on stuff, and through coaching. And then you're also appreciating what they do. So in general, at the end of the day, we know that this has just been a crazy, crazy time, challenging for everyone. And what has been amazing is the resources and things like URSA giving free webinars that allowed us to work together, competitors working together to get open, to get stronger, to get people get healthy, and to get back to doing what we do best as operators. And that's empowering people to live healthier lives. And there's definitely nothing better than that. This industry is amazing, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. It's been so cool to see how much people have come together and helped each other. And I do appreciate you guys joining me today and wish you the best of luck in everything that you're doing. I know that together we're stronger, and that's now more than ever. So I do want to put my information. So if there's some sort of follow-up that I need to give you more clarification on, we do have some time for questions today. But if there's anything that you need from me, please, please, please email me. It's Marissa with 1 S at stevensonempowers.com. I also have my Facebook and LinkedIn, so you can go through there to reach out to me. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions, tell you what I've learned from watching other people open and from helping other people open. And I do have some questions. So let me start with Thea. We run a fitness center in a residential building. Residents have a tendency to police often or not follow the rules with a classic response. I'm an owner. I pay a lot of money. Are there any tips for training you have that we can teach our team to help them handle the situations? So definitely it's going to be that kill them with kindness thing, using that policy enforcement step-by-step thing. So let's say you have an owner in that residential building, and that owner doesn't want to wear a mask, and let's say that owner's name is Tara. So, hi, I'm Marissa. I'm one of the welcome desk people here at the fitness center. What's your name? Oh, okay, hi. Yeah, I understand that you're an owner, totally get it. You may not be aware, however, the county has designated that we need to wear masks. I know that you pay a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. However, we can only remain open when everyone is doing their part to keep us open. And a lot of clubs are in the reopening using like a member oath. So it's kind of like, I promise to do the following 5 behaviors. You know, I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to clean up after myself. And you're going to make it known via email. You're going to have posters up that these are the rules that need to be followed in order for you to be able to stay open. So I understand you're an owner. Kill them with kindness. Have a part of our member oath in order for us to stay open requires that, you know, hopefully this is only temporary. But again, this is something that you're going to role play, role play, role play. So you're going to take those 5 steps, and you're going to have everyone on your staff just go step-by-step practice. It could be that you know exactly who those people are that are going to give you a hard time. You know, I know that if we were still running Stevenson Fitness, I would know exactly who was going to give me a hard time when we open. And so my team members would be role-playing with, you know, let's say it was Manuel. We know Manuel is good. Sorry to pick on you, Manuel. Manuel was going to be hard to deal with, so we would practice, you know. Someone would be Manuel, and you just practice, practice, practice. I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions? Do you still have to pay staff for their training while they're on furlough? So obviously every state is different. California is very employee friendly, and so I would suggest that you always compensate people for their time. So if they're on furlough now and you know that you're getting ready to reopen, you're going to start paying them for that Zoom meeting, for that training that they come in, for the training the day before. All that stuff needs to get paid. And then someone also wanted to know, what if your employees don't want to come back because they're making more on unemployment? So that's a little bit of a legal question, but what I've heard from other owners is that they give an offer letter. So once you know you're ready, like, welcome back to the club, I'm offering you this position back at the welcome desk at the rate of blah, blah, blah. And if they decide not to return, they are ineligible for unemployment. So that's something that the CDC, you know, when you get those letters in the mail about, you would have to let the employee know, say, if you choose not to come back, then you will be ineligible since you're deciding to resign versus continue. So that's just something that you need to talk with them. And I think best way to deal with employees and members who do not comply with the new normal. Well, I know that there are procedures that some clubs have done where they've said in their guidelines, specifically, this is the member oath. You have to do these 5 things, you know, bring your sweat towel, wear a mask in and out of the club, clean up after yourself. Members different from employees, so let's address members first. So you know this is what is expected, and in your posters and the emails that you send to club, in your social media, this is the new expectation of our members. By coming into the club, you agree to the following. So that's in all the documentation that you're doing. By coming back into the club, you agree to this. And the first time they choose not to do that, let's say it's cleaning the equipment, you would say, hey, Jason, I know that this is different than what we did before. However, and you go through the whole policy enforcement thing. We do need everyone to clean. It's going to help everyone stay healthy. I know it's sometimes inconvenient, but it's going to help us, you know, keep everyone healthy and keep the club open. And if that person chooses not to comply, by the way, you're documenting everything. So if you're having issues, your employees are writing this down. And then you're going to have in your writing that you send out to members, for people who choose not to comply, it could be like a 3 strikes, you're out. So you'll have to, you know, decide what that looks like. But Jason, if you have the same members 3 times in a row, you'd have to say, Jason, I understand that this is inconvenient for you and you don't agree with the new procedures. However, we can't have you be at our club, putting other members in danger and also putting us in the situation where we may have our right to open revoked. So once you're ready to come back to the club and follow the new procedures, we'd love to have you. But for now, we'll put your membership on freeze. And then with the employees, it's the same thing. You're coaching on the floor and you see, you know, this is going to be the biggest thing, guys, is employees not keeping the physical distance. And you're just going to have to repeat it. So Stacy and Sarah are best friends and they hang out together and blah, blah. You're going to say, Stacy and Sarah, I understand, but when you're on the premises, you need to be 6 feet apart. You need to have your masks. This is why. And again, it's the 3 strike thing. This is super important for the success of your club, guys. You cannot let these things slide. So hopefully that was helpful. again, feel free to reach out to me. I think, Billy, we're at our 9 o'clock, well, Pacific Standard Time. I appreciate you guys coming in. I know that you guys are super busy, and I really wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for attending today.
Great. Thank you so much. That is all the time that we do have for today. Before you shut down, please take a moment to fill out the brief survey that you should see pop up on your screen momentarily. We do appreciate any feedback you can provide, as it helps us improve future webinars. Again, thank you all for joining us today and for your great questions. As always, thank you to Marissa for sharing her expertise with us today. We all hope you have a great rest of your day.